All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get rocking and rolling with your questions, as always. First question is actually from a gentleman named A Dosage of Reality. He said he wants to know, why does Social Security rely heavily on one consultative evaluation from a Social Security doc instead of all of the treating doctors? In his situation, he said, I think a CE is just a way for Social Security to obtain a single source evaluation that is not favorable to the claimant. He actually gave some additional information and comments that I think is great as well, but I want to kind of touch bases on what he's talking about. How many of you have found yourself in a situation where you have gone to a Social Security doctor and in your opinion, you believe that Social Security relied heavily on just that one doctor, even though you've got medical records from your other doctors that clearly demonstrates that you're disabled? Here's what I tell people a lot of times and where this gets a little tricky. First of all, Social Security has to look at the weight of all of your medical evidence. And you got to keep it in its proper context. And the reason why I say proper context is that I've seen this happen. I've seen situations where I've had multiple treating doctors say, my client is truly disabled. But then when you look in their medical records, the medical records doesn't really support it. Meaning, well, let's kind of put it like this. Let's say you've got two different treating doctors that says that you're in intractable pain. I mean, the pain in your back is so bad that it is just off the chizzy for shizzy. But then when you look in the records, there's no MRI, no CT, no x-rays, no physical therapy, no recommendation for epidural steroid injections, no manipulative like chiropractic, no pain management, no neurologist, no rheumatologist, no orthopedist, and the most significant medication they've given you is ibuprofen. That's it. But then they say your back is so bad that you can't work. Well, guess what's going to happen? If throughout all of your medical records they notice that you haven't been going to see hardly anybody in light of what I just mentioned, and the most they've given you is something that you can get over the counter, guess what? Social Security is not going to give a lot of weight to what your doctor says, even if the doctor says you're disabled. And here's the other thing that most people fail to realize. The ultimate decision of making a determination that you're disabled is really the Commissioner of Social Security. What the doctor's responsibility is to lay out what your limitations are and provide medical treatment or medical diagnosis that support the severity of your condition based on that treatment. So I always caution people when I have people come to me and say, I got 4 or 5 doctors that says I'm disabled, and this one doctor is who they relied on. And I'm like, it probably was not as neat as you described it. And I'm not saying that what your situation as it's described to me here is not the case. What I'm saying is that I can't tell you the number of times I've had people come to me and swear that they've had 1 or 2 doctors or even 3 or 4 say that they're disabled. But then when I'm looking at the records, I'm seeing inconsistencies. I'm seeing this doctor says you're disabled, but the most they're giving you is ibuprofen for your pain. I'm saying this person says, oh, you have seizures, but then you look at your medications and you're taking Dilantin and you haven't had a seizure in a year, but the doctor says you're disabled as a result of your seizure, but you haven't had a seizure in over a year. I tell you this to be careful, because a lot of times, trust me, I know, because it's human nature. We all want to focus on the good things in our case that we believe clearly demonstrates that we're disabled. But you got to look at the entire thing. And they're not going to just look at just the fact that your doctor said that you're disabled. They got to look at what treatment you received, what other doctors have said about your condition, and then they have to look at it all collectively. And so this is where I tell people, if collectively your medical records don't support what your treating doctor is saying, I don't care how many times your treating doctor says you're disabled, if the records don't support it, then they're not going to say, well, ignore all those other medical evidence and we're going to just look at this. Your medical records have to be supported by what your doctor's assessment that you're disabled has to be supported by what the weight of all of your collective medical evidence says in order for it to be substantial to demonstrate that you're disabled. So guess what that means? If you go to an evaluation for Social Security and that doctor's opinion is supported by everybody else, unfortunately, Social Social Security is going to give weight to that doctor. How do I know if my treatment regimen is one that will demonstrate I'm disabled? Oh, and that's awesome. And this is actually a flow through from the other one. Tix4 gave a great one talking about how do you know? And I'm like, you know what? It's so funny. You don't know. Because ideally, most people who, let me stop for a second. So you go to apply for disability benefits and you want to demonstrate that you are disabled because you believe you are. First thing I tell people is the only person that can help you do that is your doctor. They've got to get you on the proper treating regimen. And then most people come to me and they ask, well, what's the proper treating regimen? And I'm thinking, and this is what I tell people, it depends on the severity of your condition. Here is the reality. There are two schools of thought, yours and the provider's. Most people, when they walk in and they believe that they're disabled, they have it in their mind, I'm disabled. Boom, there it is. Now, from a doctor's standpoint, the doctor is there for two particular purposes. One, to diagnose what your problem is, and two, to treat it. That's really what they're there for. They're not there to help you prove you're disabled. They are there to hopefully improve your situation. Now, what happens is the medical evidence over time can demonstrate whether your condition is improved or is it so severe that the only thing it can do is just sustain. I caution people and tell them, don't go in there with the agenda of trying to get the doctor to give you the most severe thing possible or significant things possible to show it. Let the medical treatment develop on its own. Let's take a common one. You had a bad back. You slipped and fell. You hurt your back. And you believe your back is in so much pain that in order for you to function, you can't do anything at all because the pain is just off the chain. Okay, so let's go to the doctor. If you come to me and you're saying, Attorney Reeves, what are you looking for that lets me let you know that the treatment regimen demonstrates the severity of your condition? Okay, well, let's walk down the line. First, I'm going to ask the question, are you going to a doctor? Okay, so you say, yes, I am. Then I'm going to ask you, okay, let's start with the date. When did you hurt? You slipped and fell. Let's say you slipped and fell at a grocery store in January of this year. We're going to take the personal injury, workers' comp, all that out of the equation. Let's just say strictly with the injury. Okay, we know January 1st, you went to go get some barbecue stuff so you could barbecue for the holidays. You slipped, you fell, you hurt your back, you're off the chain, you can't work anymore. All right, so now we're going to say, I'm going to ask them, are you going to a doctor? Okay. First thing I'm going to ask is, what type of treatment is the doctor prescribing to you? Well, the doctor gave me some pain medication. I said, okay, what kind of medication are you taking? What medication you're taking is going to tell me a couple of things. If you're taking ibuprofen, over-the-counter things, my first instinct is that it's going to tell me that your pain, yes, it's annoying, but it's not that severe because you're getting over-the-counter pain medication. Then I'm going to ask the question, okay, have you had any objective testing? And they say, well, what do you mean by objective testing? I mean, have you gotten any x-rays, CTs, MRIs? I've gone for an MRI. Awesome. Why is an MRI awesome for me? Because an MRI, for me, typically if a doctor believes it's just more than just a simple strain or sprain, a doctor sending you for an MRI could be two things. One could be cautionary, or two is in an instance where they believe your condition is of such severity. Maybe they need to see a little bit more. So I'm going to say, let me see what the MRI says. MRI may show me a few things. Then I'm going to ask, okay, if the MRI shows a few things that I believe catches my attention, I'm going to ask, have you had a chance to review this with your doc? Yes, I have. Has the doctor recommending you for anything else? Why am I asking that question? Because if the doctor's just going to keep giving you over the pain counter medication, the doctor probably thinks your situation ain't that bad. Now, let's get away from everybody who's screaming, well, I don't have insurance. I go to a free provider. I got that. I got you, boo. We there. What I'm trying to tell you is that usually, even in those instances, if they believe that there's something more significant, there are options even within the healthcare system, county healthcare system, or a free healthcare system. There are options. So then I'm going to say, are they recommending you to go for anything else? So if you come back to me and you say, well, the doctor's going to recommend that I go to one of the big three, orthopedist, neurologist, or rheumatologist. Wonderful. Why? They're specialists. That means they're thinking that it's something that has to do with your muscles, something that has to do with your nerves, something that has to do with your bones. One of those three things. Awesome. You go into a specialist. So that's telling me that you've got a little bit more severe. Then when you go there, I'm going to ask what's going on there. Are they prescribing you something significant? If they say, when I say significant, meaning what else are they prescribing you? Are they prescribing you pain meds above and beyond what you can get out of over the counter? If you come to me and you say, well, they're going to keep me on ibuprofen, then I'm going to say they don't think the pain is that significant. But if you come to me with hydrocodone, oxycodone, Percocet, Vicodin, morphine sulfate, then you're taking significant narcotic pain meds. Then I know you're having some problems. Let's say they say, okay, well, we think we need to get you some epidural steroid injections or some nerve blocks. We're talking about, again, procedures for more significant pain. They're talking about surgeries. Awesome. Physical therapy. Awesome. Now, for my purposes, as I'm hearing this, I've now laid out a regimen where it has literally demonstrated chronologically how systematically the doctors have identified your problems and have taken various steps along the way to demonstrate the things they're trying to do to help improve it. And each step, stair step, from the ibuprofen, working our way all the way up to getting shots and surgeries, I've shown you, I've demonstrated chronologically how those things demonstrate the severity of your condition. Here's the reality. I know I gave a big, kind of long-winded response, but let me just tell you this right now. There is no magical regimen, that you can, it's not a magical yellow brick road of medical treatment that Social Security looks for. Just as I ask those questions, there are going to be certain things that Social Security is going to be asking as well to ascertain the severity of your condition. Your focus should be on following the treatment regimen that your doctor set in order to get improvement. Because if it's not being improved, your condition and the treatment that your doctor prescribes will basically be reflected in your medical records. Don't stress. Go to the doctor. Do what they say. Let the records speak for themselves on their own. Don't focus all your attention on, I think you need to get me an MRI. I think you need to get me some nerve blocks. Let it happen naturally. Trust me, from a credibility standpoint, it helps you a lot more in the long run.